If you're looking for more conversion and customer loyalty, our next speaker knows how to tap into your customer's mind to bring you just that. He's been an online sales consultant for Spotzer Media, a conversion rate optimization consultant for iProspect Nederland, and for the last 2 years, he's served as the product owner for Booking.com. With advice about not only how to motivate and help your customers, but to inspire them to feel confident and happy with their decision. Please welcome Kees Oomen.
Thank you very much. One big hand for Jasmine again. Awesome. All right. Hi, everyone. Great to meet you at the Habit Summit. And looking forward to meet you later as well. So as Gibson mentioned already and talked about customer obsession, which is a very interesting talk, I want to elaborate a bit more on how we do at Booking.com and how we try actually to get our employees working towards that customer obsession. And what I want to talk is how we create internally our own habits that forms our innovation. So how can we help people there? So I work at Booking.com, and our mission is empower people to experience the world. In the next 20 minutes, you will see how I love working at Booking.com and talk about the habits that we create there. And I'm probably saying that I'm kind of booking blue, as we call it. I'm brainwashed in the company's culture, and you will see why we think that is helpful at the end for our customers. So yeah, Booking.com, Booking.yeah. We are based in Amsterdam. Our headquarters in Europe, in the Netherlands. As you hear my accent, I'm from there too. So yeah, empower people to experience the world. How we do that? Let me show big hand of who knows Booking.com. Okay, that's awesome. Great. So that's it. Then I don't elaborate. So if we talk about habits, what are my habits actually at Booking.com? So I wake up in the morning, go to the office, and then read some blogs. Like some of the things I'm inspired by is The Influence by Robert Cialdini, The 6 Principles. I start looking at some experiment results about all the A/B testing that we do. Then I get my caffeine shot. Looking into customer feedback that we have, quality feedback, talk with other people that might have read some feedback. Then I actually came to some nice stories probably with the team and going to discuss them about what is the effort to get this done? What is the effort to wrap this up in an A/B test and roll out this feature? Set up the priorities, and hopefully, fingers crossed, this will end up in some improvements for our customers. So here you see some results of my habits that I have at Booking.com. As you see, I worked on Persuasion product. We have now a few teams that cover Persuasion. And these concepts are probably well familiar for you and highly influenced on the Influence book by Robert Cialdini. I think Gibson already mentioned that Netflix, half of the tests that I did were might wrong. Well, we are even worse. We are even worse, more wrong. So I think over my life I did more than 1,000 experiments only at Booking.com, of which maybe around 200, 300 were really successful. And that isn't a problem at Booking.com because we embrace failure. It's okay if you fail fast as long as you try much, because we really believe in velocity. So as I said, only 200, 300 successful. You know I'm usually wrong, so you can extrapolate that of the rest of my talk, but I hope you get still some information from it. So if we are usually wrong, we don't really believe in hippos because we have proof that they are also usually wrong. So even a senior in your title doesn't mean that you have it more often right. Yeah, instead we test everything. And we use our A/B testing as democratization of our decision making. We don't like hippos. I apologize if there are any hippos in the room. But instead, we decentralize all the power to the teams. And as I mentioned, our Persuasion teams is like 3 or 4 teams, but we have over hundreds only on a front-end organization. We have 70,000 people working at Booker.com, over 2,000 to 3,000 in product. It's growing 30% year over year. And we try to keep decentralized power. If you see the colors here, it's kind of representative of each role. So we have in each team a designer, front-end developer, back-end developer, and a project manager like me. And depending on the needs, we have copywriters and data scientists too. So as these teams growing, we try to get autonomy. And that lays in every kind of team. Also, people move around every 9 or 12 months between teams. We think it's good to get different views. And I think once you start creating like a lot of habits in this team, and you might start that you think you know better, you might think that you maybe are too focused on a certain project. So it's good to at least being challenged from other people. So that's why actually like every 9, 12 months, we suggest you to move some teams, of course, in your interests. But how does all these teams make products that they love? That's really something that we want to do, right? If you talk about customer obsession, customer experience, delightful experiences. How do we do that? Well, I think you're quite familiar with this loop. It's lean startup, so we try to learn, build, and measure. And how more of these loops you will have, how more actually we can bring our customers. So we try to support our teams to do this as much as possible. And we give them autonomy, decentralized powers, and we want to remove any dependencies that they have on the teams. So as I talked about, and you're very familiar with this concept probably, it's already talked about, like A/B testing. So I'm not going to explain how that works for us. Just a nice example here, how the Booking.com. You might see the change, you might not. Sometimes there are quite subtle. I'm not going to tell you. You can maybe a good reason to watch the video again if you can't see it immediately. All the numbers, by the way, that I have today are a bit fake. So I'm 23% conversion, 11% conversion. It's not real. It's just for the purpose of explaining what we do. At Booking.com, so I said I ran 1,000 experiments with my teams. We have more than 1,000 experiments running concurrently. And that means that we have actually more versions of our websites than human beings ever existed, which is a nice number. But also it means that our quality assurance specialists and people actually deserve much more money than we give them, because it's also sometimes hard to maintain all of this. So what I want to talk to you about is our habits, the habits that I just showed for me, for example, how that drives innovation. And how we create a culture for it. And I borrowed Neer's model, which is in the book that you all got, which is a nice gift. So we trigger action, reward, and investment. And our trigger is a well-defined hypothesis. And probably you get some triggers to form this hypothesis. The action is you do A/B testing, you wrap it up in an experiment, you create a feature. Then your reward is learnings and data. And as I said, you're usually wrong. This is variable reward. It's very variable because, yeah, if we knew all that we would get a reward in a sense that it would be good for our customers, then we don't need any A/B testing. And then we ask you to do an investment, which might be iteration, which might be sharing with other people, which might be implemented to our customers on even multiple platforms. And we don't only do this for our website. So I mainly focus this talk as I'm product manager as well on our front-end organization, and now also work on partners. But we do this, our testing culture is everywhere. Marketing campaigns, offline, online, finance, if you build a new internally system, HR, everyone try to experiment in a way. So how do we actually support kind of creating these habits and creating these loops? Let me start with the trigger. One of the things that we hire people for is really they need to have customer empathy. And they need to really have an internal motivation to do things right for the customer. Sounds quite logic, but still, we really do this. Moreover, which is quite unique to a company at Booking.com and still is in the size, is that we give everyone 100% access. 100% access as much as we legally allowed to do, of course. Having this access means that whenever you join a company at Booking.com, you get the keys to all our data, like qualitative data, quantitative data, what is the customers doing on our website, what are they calling about to our customer service, even financial numbers if you like to know, profits, everything is at everyone's hands just to create better hypotheses. Because how more informed you are, how more hypotheses you get. And that's why I want to talk not only about ideas, but a hypothesis. That's something like a mistake. Some of my colleagues calls an ID more a fart in the wind. Sorry for that. But hypothesis is really something that has the intention that you need to prove it. And you need to think about the actions, about what is ID going to bring you, and why that should be good, and how you're going to prove it. Which actually bring me to the next one, is how you're going to prove it. So a lot of things we wrap up in A/B tests, almost everything actually, as I just said. And as we don't like hippos, we really like autonomy. And that means you can change everything on the website if you have a good reason for it. So if you want to make it tomorrow purple, probably you have to think twice. But if you have a very good hypothesis and very supported by great data, you might can do it. There is no CEO or chief product officer or vice president that says you can't do it or you shouldn't. Probably he tries to convince you with some other data why it isn't the best idea maybe in the first place. Then we embrace failure. So you're allowed to fail. Fail can be in like you're allowed to have a lower success rate in your experimentation, but also our developers might fail with implementation. So it might be not the cleanest code, but if we can really experiment something in like a day, why not do it in a bit of a hacky way? And then later think about on how we can kind of scale it up. Of course, this sometimes can lead to some outages, but we even have an outage budget, which is quite unique to our company, I think, as well. So that's great to work in. And of course, we have our in-house experiment tool to make it for you easy, which means we are quite in the game. Around over 10 years, we do A/B testing already. And there weren't even that really sophisticated tools available by then, in which we created our own. This helped us a lot to change it quickly. And we have internal teams that support this tool. I will tell you more about it. Then the reward. I think the reward is the results of your experimentation. And in the book of Neer, we talk also about like the self, the hunt, and the tribe. And of course, you want to be right with your hypothesis. So you have the need kind of to prove your hypothesis, and that's what we call a green result. So you see like green things in our tool, and that might be good. Your hypothesis might be validated. But also, we want to learn more than just your initial metrics. And so if you target it on conversion, you might also want to see like unintended behavior. Like what does this experiment did people went to certain pages, or did certain segment? Did they look more for homes and apartments instead of hotels in this specific experiment? And then of course the customers, that's where we all do it for, which we call maybe our tribe. So we don't want to do it only for our colleagues that we say, yes, I was right on the hypothesis, but really we helped our customers. And that's our main motivation, as I told you. Once the reward and the data is there, we do kind of investments, as I say. We start out by implementation and want to share the results. Sharing the results is a great investment because we want to spread these learnings across the company so other ones can build this hypothesis again, which is the nice connection to the loop. So how does this look like? I go quickly fast through this. It's probably also too small to read. So we got some user feedback. Let's say I can't find if this hotel has Wi-Fi. I can't find if it has free Wi-Fi. So what we do is this qualitative feedback. I have access to all the data. We have 100% access. So let me just query how many hotels we have with free Wi-Fi available. That's my action. And then the reward is, yes, we have 50% of hotels which has free Wi-Fi. So there's a big customer group exposed to this. So let's make a difference. Let's try to change that. Let's try to make it more visible. So I write a hypothesis about, let's put a badge of Wi-Fi on the hotel page if it's free. So this hypothesis creates another loop. It starts with, it's end up on the backlog, and people start developing on this, which is their trigger. So they pick up a story on the backlog, they all support the hypothesis, start working on it. So their implementation will be the A/B test, wrap it up, base and variant, having a free batch Wi-Fi. Then the reward will be the test results. As I say, green is good. You see some red, which means that, okay, this is the amount of people that go back to the hotel page again after they went to booking process, which we actually let people don't think only about the colors, because red is good in here, because if less people go back from the checkout to the hotel page, they're probably more convinced with this hotel anyway, and they don't need to search another one. And as I said, this will trigger, these good results on your hypothesis will trigger an email around the company, around the product company, and say, hey, I put something full on, which is like something that we implement, in this and this team, and this is the hypothesis, and this is the screenshot that this experiment did. So initially the trigger was a hypothesis, and it went on to a customer improvement at the end. This, and now I start keeping loops and loops and loops on how we form these internal habits and have much of these loops inside. So what is interesting is this sharing of learnings of this email. And it's not only email, we have Facebook groups for like workplaces, like our internal extranet, internal platform in which we share things. It might be via like lightning walks, like small conferences that we have. What did you learn last week? What did you learn last week? And this can be food for other new hypotheses. So I read this email. I check, is this hypothesis interesting for my team? What can I learn from it? Then the reward is, yes, it's very interesting. I just see a free Wi-Fi badge. It was experimented on the Android app, but I'm responsible for mobile web. So let me try this. Or I'm responsible for, or my product is working on something else, which say they want to embrace like beaches. So maybe I can use this free Wi-Fi badge and think about, hey, what about if people search for summer? Let me create a badge for beaches. So successful experiment email actually led to new hypotheses for other teams. As you see, we have this habit of like learn from each other, and we create a lot of triggers inside a company, but also you have like very internal triggers. So as I say, with the morning coffee I have every day, I like to check everyone's experiments. And as we say, we have over thousands of experiments running at Booking.com. It's like way too much to go individually one by one. So my habit is weekly I want to check what other teams are doing. I go to our internal tool, and I check all these experiments, let's say 50, because I check it out for 3 teams. And only out of 50, there might be 3 relevant for me. And only out of these 3, there's 1 successful. I might have learned for also the ones that weren't successful, but still, it's kind of it's a use overload. So what is my investment here? I just talk with the guys that create the internal tool. I say, hey, can we make this more automatically? Can I just subscribe to some teams? Can I just trigger only when an experiment is successful? Or can I just only receive an email when this experiment was done on a mobile platform, or et cetera, et cetera. So we actually want to curate a bit these notifications. Well, as you can imagine, this kind of input for me, this investment and talk with this team, leads to a hypothesis for that internal team that maintains our A/B experiment tool. They're going to validate with other colleagues, like, hey, Kees is doing this every day. It takes him 30 minutes. Not for the most relevant experiments that he got. Let me just check in our internal Facebook if this is relevant for other teams. Hey guys, what do you think of a subscription feature? Hooray, it's more than 70 likes. Let's build it, let's roll it out, see how the people react in the company, and see if it leads to more hypotheses at the end. So another loop based on learnings inside the company. So initial trigger is a request from an internal team, and it saves 30 minutes a week, because I just now get the subscription automatically, but not only 30 minutes for me, but over 100 product owners. So figure out we save some FTEs here. So as you see, all these loops are connected. So I started with some customer feedback, how that led to a hypothesis, and how this hypothesis led to customer improvement, et cetera, et cetera. And of course, better hypothesis leads again to more customer improvements. So instead of like blowing our own trumpet on why this all is good, I just want to let other people do that for us. So this is a quote from Evercore Equity Research. Booking.com's utilization of A/B testing drives higher conversion across its entire platform, resulting in conversion levels 2 to 3 times the industry average. Now you're wondering probably what the industry average is. That changes a lot, so I can't answer that, but at least we're doing much better, which is great. I can't tell you what our conversion rates are, of course, but yeah, this gives a good signal, and that, as I said, I'm usually wrong, but here's some evidence that it might work. I think this is interesting, something that also was mentioned in the example of Gibson at Netflix. It's like we really want to have debate. So we try to measure everything, which is a great advantage, but are we measuring the right thing? And this is something that we also, one of our habits is to challenge each other every day. And we also challenge on, is this the right metric? So is a booking, is a conversion the right metric? Should we look at supporting metrics like customer service inbound? Should we look at the long term? And this is a bit hard for us as Booking.com. It's not the most let me talk this. It's not the most frequent used product, right? I mean, you might be a loyal customer to Booking.com if you go once a year on holiday, but you do it with Booking.com and not with one of our competitors. You might be very loyal to us. But like one-time interaction, one-time transaction with us, it's hard to measure this loyalty. Like, it can take a year for you to come back. So at the end, maybe customer lifetime value of loyalty would be a great measurement for us, but we probably need to have something that is a proxy for it, which proved to be conversion. What you see here in the circles is that we believe that most of the experiments that have been proven to be successful on conversion will be actually good for our customers. But there are always things that we saw, hey, it improved conversion, but actually we hurt customers. We have some of these experiments too. And we have the ones that were proven to be good for our customers, but we failed to measure it in conversion. So we always have this, and of course we try to look at new and new metrics in our organization that can make this overlap much better. And this is challenging. Also, I'm currently changed from customer facing products, so like the Booking.com website and mobile app, to partner faced. And on the partner, although we have daily interaction and we have some habits here of people checking the reservations and availability every day, still a question there, like what does success look like for a partner? Is it like the number of bookings, or is it like a better review over time? And maybe it's a combination. So we embrace debate. So what does your company actually does to drive innovation through the habits? One of the things we do very strong, and as you mentioned, I talk about Booking Blue, and I talk about Booking.yeah, and you see my sticker here. It's like be crushed it, and we call things like be awesome, and be agile, and be challenged, and things like that. And we spread this, and we do kind of brainwashing in these terms. So like experiment, learn, be open to change. Work together to achieve success and things like that, because it's really important to get away from any hippos, to get this autonomy, and that everyone knows is in the organization. So that if you are going to be challenged, you're okay with it. So people across our organization kind of been asked, are you okay being wrong? Are you okay being proven wrong? Are you okay to have your ideas tested like everyone else? Are you okay with unexpected results? Are you willing to invest in experimentation, even if it can take longer to set it up? And our culture, like, are you customer-centric, of course? Everything wrapped up in experiments, and of course, very data-driven. Another one is the tools, and I think one of the benefits that we use our internal tools is that we can adapt them fast, as I just showed, on how that can save us 30 minutes per person a week, but it can also make us very fast changing on adding different metrics. And people need to really trust the experiment tools, because if they don't trust the tooling, they don't trust the results, right? So this is also something that is a lot of training about our tools, how they can use it. So yeah, what does your organization do to drive innovation and to drive these habits? Do you trust your people in this autonomy? Do you steer them too much, yes or no? Do you have hippos? Do you have a culture of challenging each other? Do you embrace room for failure, and do you experiment? And do you have your own tooling that can start creating these triggers and these rewards as we're talking about? So yeah, the message I want to give is try to see on how you can hook your employees towards innovation. How can you create these processes and create these tools internally? Most of the talks and the things how I looked at as well at this hook model is like, how can we use it for our products? But how can we use it in our processes to finally create better products? That's the message I want to give you. So thank you very much.